Hey, Bro, what are you doing here? Close the door. I was just in the area and I wanted to ask you. How did you find me? Wait, are you editing videos? You brought all your stuff here? I'm gonna call the police. Did you at least get a double queen room? I kinda need a crash here because, we're far away from home. But I mean, would it kill you to just take off some time? Do you have deep-rooted issues? Do we need to talk? This is a work trip. I feel like that makes it worse. Like, you're already working. Why do you gotta fuse it with even more work in your downtime? Hey, yo, speaking of fusions, wait, how did you get a key to this?
I feel like I've been doing a lot of fusions lately on this channel. I don't know, they just intrigue me. And this one is going to be two classics. It's two recipes that I made on this channel last year, two of my favorites, Detroit pizza and butter chicken. Now, I'm not the first one by a long shot to try this. You can find tons of videos out there of butter chicken pizza. I'm not sure if you can find stuff for Detroit style, but it's still pretty much the same. However, I'm just going to be making those two of my recipes and putting them together. Pretty simple. The Detroit pizza crust is going to be modified slightly to make it resemble more of a garlic naan, which I love to eat with butter chicken. And then the butter chicken is just going to be reduced a little bit more to make it thicker and make it coat the pizza better. But I'll go ahead and take you through this. It's not the easiest thing or the fastest thing, but it's not too hard. Starting with the butter chicken, I went through the whole recipe in detail in the video I made last year, but I'm just going to run quickly through it here. Starting by making the homemade masala, and for that I have 2 teaspoons of garam masala, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of ground coriander, 1 teaspoon of turmeric, 2 teaspoons of Kashmiri chili powder, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. I shake that together until it's mixed, and I'm going to use that in the marinade as well as in the sauce. And to marinate, I have 2 pounds of boneless skinless chicken thighs, which I'm going to grate in 2 cloves of garlic, then about an equal amount or a couple teaspoons of grated ginger, 8 grams or a heaping teaspoon of kosher salt, and then about a cup of whole milk plain yogurt, and you can use Greek if you have that. Then I'm adding the juice of half of a lemon and then about a third of the spice mixture that we just made. And then I mix all that together with a glove to marinate, and I go overnight, but you could do like 4 hours or even like an hour or so. And I've tried to cook curry chicken in many different ways, starting with browning it in a pan, which didn't work well. The yogurt marinade burns really easily when you try to sear it. So then I've tried roasting it on a sheet tray in the oven, and that did a little better, but it still burns a lot on the bottom. Finally, I took it out on my grill, and that seemed to work the best, except it really stuck to the grates. So I finally think I have the best system now, and I'm going to do it on my grill again. I let that preheat on medium-high for like 15 minutes to make sure everything's hot. And once I clean the grates, then I'm going to take a bowl with a little bit of neutral oil in it. I soak a paper towel in that, and then use tongs to spread that across the grates. That's going to coat the whole surface with oil and make things not stick to it nearly as easily. I think non-stick spray would also work here, but probably not as good. But anyway, once my grill is lubed up, I'm going to add all my chicken thighs to it. There's no real science to this. I'm just giving them a flip every minute to minute and a half. All I'm trying to do is just get some nice color all around, which is going to add nice flavor to the curry. I wouldn't even worry about trying to fully cook these on the inside because they're going to cook more in the curry and on the pizza. I probably just gave them like 7 to 8 minutes in total of cooking with flipping. Then I remove those to a cutting board and let them rest for about 5 minutes to let the juices settle, and then I can cut those into chunks. I did pretty small chunks, even smaller than I would do in my normal butter chicken because this is going on a pizza and I want them to be bite-sized. But now we just need to make the sauce, and into a medium saucepan I'm just going to add a few tablespoons of ghee, then 1 onion of any kind that's been diced pretty finely. I stir that around for about 5 minutes to soften it and get some color on it. Then another 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, which are going to cook for about a minute. I would also add more ginger here if you have it. I just ran out with the marinade. Then I'm going to add most of the rest of the spice mixture to toast that. I can save the rest to add later to taste. And then lastly, a couple tablespoons of tomato paste, which is essential to get browned in this fond. That should be able to toast for about 1 more minute or so, and then we can deglaze with a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Make sure to scrape up all the fond off the bottom and then let this come to a quick boil. Then I drop that to a low simmer and let that cook together for about 15 minutes. And then we'll add this mixture to a blender so it can get really soft and smooth, which is traditional for butter chicken. I also added a nice handful of chopped cilantro to get that flavored in here as well. Blend for about 30 seconds or until it's cohesive, and then we can strain it back into the clean pan. Spend a few minutes pressing that sauce out with a spatula to make sure you're just leaving the solids behind. But you should be left with this really nice, smooth, and creamy, flavorful curry base. And since this is going to serve as a pizza sauce, I want it to be a little thicker than I normally would, which means I'm just going to simmer this for a few more minutes until it's reduced a bit. I am going to come in with about a half cup of heavy cream because that's traditional. That's going to water it down a bit more, so I want to reduce it a little further after that. But probably after about 10 total minutes of simmering, you can see that my spatula leaves a line when dragged through. That should be thick enough to coat the pizza in the line shape that we want to do later. So here we can season to taste, which I'm just adding salt and this fenugreek powder. It's like my favorite thing to add at the end of making a curry. It's just so powerful and it tastes amazing. And as is tradition, just like in my original butter chicken video, I forgot to add the titular ingredient, which is butter. So I made an absolutely fatal error here and didn't add butter to this, which is stupid because this is buttered chicken. You should just at the very end toss in about 4 tablespoons of butter to melt into the sauce. It's literally the easiest thing and it takes this to another level. I don't know how I keep forgetting to do it, but regardless, if you forget it, you can just add it to your leftovers. I'm then going to add my chicken chunks back in to absorb the sauce and finish cooking. This would be a great butter chicken to just eat on its own with rice, but of course we're going to make this with a pizza. And I am going to slightly modify my Detroit pizza crust recipe from my video just to make it resemble more of a garlic naan. It's going to go a little bit better with a curry chicken topping. So into the bowl of a stand mixer, I'm adding 200 grams of warm water and 5 grams of active dry yeast. I stir that together and let it sit for a few minutes until it becomes a
frothy boy.
It's been a while since I've heard that. Then I'll add 9 grams or a teaspoon and a half of kosher salt. And then I'm adding 60 more grams or a quarter cup of that whole milk plain yogurt, a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil, and then I'm grating in 1 or 2 cloves of garlic to make it more like garlic naan. Finally, 300 grams or 2.5 cups of bread flour. I'm mixing that briefly by hand so it starts coming together, and then I'm going to stick it under my stand mixer with the dough hook. I let that knead for about 8 minutes and then I checked to see if it passed the window pane test. And I don't know, that yogurt really made this dough quite a different texture. It was super sticky at this point. I couldn't even get it off my hands, so I stuck it back under the mixer for a couple more minutes. That helped a bit, but it was still super sticky, which was fine because of what we're going to do next. I cover that with a towel to rise at room temperature, but about every 30 minutes we're going to come by and reinforce that gluten structure. I'm going to get a wet hand so it doesn't stick and then grab around the bottom of the dough and fold it over the top. Just keep repeating around the side until you get back to where you started. These folds help reinforce the gluten structures that we were trying to make with the stand mixer. It's really good for sticky and high hydration doughs like this. I'm going to do that 2 more times for a total of 90 minutes before I stick this in the fridge overnight. You could also bake it right away, but I like to cold ferment it overnight. I always do that with my pizza. But when it's baking time, it's time to first preheat our pizza steel. I swear by these have made much better pizzas than a pizza stone or any other method that I've tried indoors. This is linked below, and I'm just sticking it on my oven grates and raising it to the highest temperature, which is 550 Fahrenheit for me. That usually needs an hour to preheat for me, so that's why I'm starting it now. Then I'm going to grab my Lloyd pizza pan, which I've specifically ordered to make Detroit pizza. There's really no other way. This is also linked below, and it's what's going to give us that really luxurious and crispy texture on the crust. Starting with enough olive oil to coat the bottom of the pan and spreading that with my hand. Then I'll add my rested dough ball and start to press it to the edges. It's almost never going to stretch fully to the edges at first, especially if you rested it in the fridge. So I'll just do my best and then come back in about 30 minutes and do it again. It'll relax over time and make it a little easier to stretch, but still not all the way to the edges. So I let it rest 30 more minutes and do the same thing, and that brings us to that hour mark where the pizza steel is heated. So time to build the pizza, starting with the cheese. Of course, the best and only traditional cheese for Detroit pizza is Wisconsin brick cheese. I bought that for my last video, but just didn't feel like doing it this time, so I'm just using some low moisture mozzarella. You should get whole milk if you can find it, but this is part skim and it'll do the job. I've got 12 ounces or 340 grams, and I'm just cutting it into really small cubes. I went too big on the cubes in my Detroit pizza video, so I learned from that. Those cubes get distributed all over the dough. Just make sure you're getting around all the edges and corners because that's where you want the cheese to burn. Absolute best flavor and texture ever. Then we just come by with our thickened butter chicken and we put those 3 traditional Detroit pizza stripes. You can try to be even with this. I'm never even. I should probably start in the middle next time, but that's okay. And that's really all this needs. You're going to toss this onto your pizza steel and let this bake for about 10 minutes flat. At that point, it's looking amazing. I'm going to remove it and then let it sit for about 5 minutes. And then I'll carefully take it out of the pan and put it on a rack because we're going to bake it again, but naked this time. That is, the crust goes directly onto the pizza steel this time to give it that extra crisp. It only needs about 5 minutes the second go around, and that's done. That's a butter chicken Detroit pizza if I've ever seen one. Just top with some more chopped cilantro, and then we can carefully cut this into 12 even slices. I really need to make these more often. 1, to just set off the cost of the Lloyd Pan's pizza pan that I bought, but 2, Detroit pizza is just the best, and it's absolutely amazing. Let's get to the taste test.
This is always the best part. Just 2 of my utmost favorite dishes that I combined, and hopefully this one's just as good put together. And that crust is so spongy and airy. This is my favorite. Cheers. That is insane. I mean, if you've had both of these things, then you already kind of know what this is gonna taste like. It's nothing surprising, but man, does it work really well together. It really resembles taking a piece of naan and just grabbing some butter chicken and eating it that way, but making it more of the Detroit style pizza crust, which is just its own iconic thing, and then adding cheese to it definitely makes it better. I'll say this, I think it definitely makes the butter chicken better. But if I'm being honest, then I think I'd rather just have the regular Detroit pizza with pepperoni and cheese. I just feel like that with that sweet tomato sauce is the perfect combination. But I would never turn this down at any gathering or anything like that. This is awesome. I'm almost positive this has been done online by many others, at least just some form of butter chicken pizza. But I didn't use anything from any of those videos because I didn't really look for it. I just put together my Detroit pizza and my butter chicken recipes, and this is what came out. Either of those two things on their own are probably in the top 10 things that I would recommend you make from my channel. So it goes without saying that I would recommend you making this because it's awesome, but I would probably just make those two things separately normally. But still, this is an absolute winner, and I'm glad I tried it at least once. Thank you all for watching, be blessed, and I'll see you next time. I wonder if throwing some paneer would make this taste even better.